Welcome to the Donna Sebo Show. Donna is an international mental practitioner, psychic, award-winning author, counselor, speaker, teacher, and radio television talk show personality. She brings to the airwaves talented people from around the world who share their insights and experiences with you, the listening audience. Now, let's join Donna.
Hello, wherever you are on this magnificent planet of ours, welcome. We're going to be discussing something that affects all of us, and that is business. The reason we need to discuss it is because without business, without good economic base, whether you're a farmer or you're serving pizza in New York City, it doesn't make any difference. Business is the substance of life that enables us as individuals, entrepreneurs, however you want to classify yourself, to be able to support our families. But if you are one of those people that say, gee, I don't want just an ordinary job, I want to go into business for myself, I want to be my own boss, well, that's wonderful. And if you're willing to do the work, the rewards can be yours. But there's another side that all too often we're not willing to address, and that is how to prevent making stupid mistakes. My guest today, Matthew Neil Davis, is an attorney, and he's put together a publication called The Art of Preventing Stupid. And believe me, it is very succinct in its information, and you are going to find, I think, some tips that if you sit down with a pad of paper and a pen, might enable you to achieve the dream that you really have within yourself. Matthew Davis, I want to welcome you to the program.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
You are an attorney. Now, lots of times when people hear that, they go, oh boy, I wonder what they're going to tell me about today. But you're an attorney with a different purpose. You really work with business owners. This is something you have a passion for. And you especially work with entrepreneurs. What made you choose that particular environment?
Well, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. I'm descended from old Okie and Kansas dirt scratching farmers, and my great grandfathers all told everybody to get off the farm and to go start building businesses, and they did. And that's just what we're all about. And from my granddad to my dad on up, my granddad was an accountant and was the first financial advisor to Harold Hamm, who's our local billionaire here. He's worth anywhere from 20 to 30 billion, depending on the price of oil. And I just have a real passion for seeing how businesses and well-run businesses can change families' futures. And I get to see it. I still live in my hometown, which is Enid, Oklahoma. It's about 60,000 people. And so I'm able to really get a nice microcosm of the difference that companies can make in families and communities. And it's just so important. And the passion that I bring to the table is I get really sick, really fed up with people coming into my office having made a stupid mistake that's just going to set them back months, years, and tens or $20,000. And it's exhausting. So we developed a system, and we have a custom legal department program, which is a general counsel program, that helps us get in front of our clients' problems. And then they move faster. They achieve their goals. They get where they want to go.
There was a man, Atul Gawande, who had the checklist manifesto. And this had a very strong impact on you. Why?
Well, I had a client that they thought I was the hero. They thought that I completely saved the day. And I mean, I did save their company, and it's a $20 million a year company. But I did it by luck, just because we were talking about their company, and I happened to help them get ahead of some problems, but it wasn't systematic. And that's not who I am. My mother was a doctor, was a gynecologist, and one of the real pioneers in breast cancer screening. And, that's preventative medicine, right? And lawyers don't think that way. But we are the people that get trusted with dealing with our clients' vulnerabilities. Now, the problem is, from law school on, we're basically taught to fix the problems rather than to prevent them. Now, that point where I said, I'm sick of this, I got to figure out how to get ahead of our clients' problems, I just started reading. And I'm a proponent of what I call pinata theory, which means you just start swinging. Once you want to get that, you just start swinging. And I read Checklist Manifesto, and he maps out 2 reasons that people tend to fail. And then I added a third to it. So it's, on one hand, sorry about that. One hand, I learned and I already knew how to think systematically, and using the checklist approach, but then I also beefed it out, and we ultimately determined that we can attribute, I want to say it's an exhaustive list. I'm sure as soon as I do that, somebody's going to come up with an exception to the rule. But the rule is all of your failures are going to come in 1 of 3 ways. Either failure to prepare for catastrophes, number 2, not dealing with your own ignorance, or number 3, being inept at what you do, meaning you know what you're supposed to be doing and you're not doing it.
Mm-hmm. This was very clear throughout the suggestions in your book, The Art of Preventing Stupid. And one of the biggest aspects is actually avoiding litigation if it is at all possible. And there is this factor with the entrepreneur. You have the idea, you have the vision, you are willing to do whatever it takes to do it. And we've all heard stories about someone from the grassroots achieving what seems to be a miracle. But one of the things that people fail to realize is you need to have a team of people around you, and you go into that to a degree. But you say you wanted to create a risk management and prevention tool that worked like the body's immune system. And I thought, now that's an interesting comparison, but it's a very common sense comparison. I think just about any old timer I've ever met, always, if their school of hard knocks they had graduated from, said something that would ground you, Lord, like, do this, thus, that, and so. Don't skip this part. Don't skip that part. Do this, thus, that, and so. And often we just ignore that. Do you think that's common in human character?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think one thing that we really try and teach in our classes and our seminars with our clients is that your business is like your body, or if you want to say it, it's like a machine. Let's use the body metaphor. And every business runs on one of 7 systems, or not on, it runs on all of them. Number 1, you got to have the management. That's like your brain. Number 2, you got to have the personnel. That's like the muscles. Number 3, you got to have the production. You got to have the plant. Let's call the plant your skin. That's where the work gets done. Then you've got to have the metrics to know how it's getting measured. And by that, I mean, sometimes I call it measurements or metrics. That is, you've got to measure it, make sure things are working. And then beyond that, you've got to have marketing, which is how you get your work. And then you've got to have sales. Now, there's a whole lot of different ways to put together a business that works, but it's like your body. It's got to be healthy. You've got to have all of those working to the extent that you want to. And what I'm saying there is, if you want to be a marathon runner, yeah, sure, you've got to have a different set of musculature, and your cardiovascular system needs to work a different way. And your business can have variations like that depending on your goals. But all of those 7 systems need to align with what your goals are. And by looking at your business in that holistic way, then looking at the potential sources of problems, which, by the way, those 7 systems multiplied by the 3 sources of failure, what you end up with is a 21-point chart where you can examine very efficiently and very effectively what can possibly go wrong, and then you can start to make some smart decisions about how to avoid, or if you can't avoid, how to manage or prepare for the potential problems.
This is not easy, I think, for most entrepreneurs. I know for myself it was, and sometimes still is, a challenge. There's that aspect of the metrics that you cover. And when you are about doing a business, especially if you're a small business person, you try to wear all of the hats, and it literally can kill you. I've known people that have just fallen apart because they couldn't do everything. And this is something that you address. This isn't easy, and it's tough to sit down. And I've even known good business people when they decided to merge out on their own, if you will, as an entrepreneur, having the same challenges as the little guy that's just doing it because he sees a niche and wants to fill it.
Yeah, and it is exhausting being an entrepreneur, and particularly if you have some ambitious goals. And what the system we set out in The Art of Preventing Stupid, we call it the business immune system, and then the report is the 21-point chart. It allows them to effectively and efficiently size up where their threats are. And the deal about your threats is they're also your weaknesses. And I really like to talk about Jim Collins, who you may be familiar with. His most famous book is Good to Great. But beyond that, he wrote a book called Great by Choice that is really a better book for small to mid-sized business owners. Mm-hmm. And he talks about the characteristics of what he calls 10X leaders. And those are the leaders of businesses that really hit it out of the park. And he notes that there's 4 attributes of those 10X leaders. And one is fanatic discipline. And most of the entrepreneurs we work with have fanatic discipline. They're going to get somewhere. Number 2, they have ambition. So they've already set ambitious goals. Number 3, they have empirical creativity. They're ready, willing, able to think about how to solve their problems. But the 4th one he talks about is productive paranoia. Now, any old fool can be paranoid. That's easy. That just means you're worrying about things. But being productively paranoid means you're effectively and efficiently worrying about your problems and then able to use that empirical creativity to do something about them. There's nobody in the marketplace that is teaching this the way we teach it, or teaching as an effective system for small business to help them get out in front of their problems. And by getting in front of your problems, your business is just stronger.
You have some excellent examples in your book, and one of them was about a cupcake lady. And of course, I like cupcakes. But anyway, let's share her story, because this is an example, a one-sided example. There's so many variables when you're doing business. But here is a lady that developed cupcakes, and she was doing a good business. How did the two of you come together?
Well, I made up Heather, and that's Heather. I made up Heather's cupcakes, and all of my examples come from sort of a collage of clients that I've worked with. The main part of the initial parts of the book, I think like the first 12 chapters, set out how the system works, how to use it, and why you can do it, and why you can do it efficiently. And then I wrote 6 chapters there towards the end. One is just called catastrophes in general, and then I do a case study about catastrophes. Where you are in the book, and by the way, that I'm going through that right now on my podcast. I don't know if they're live, but the podcast is it's the Art of Preventing Stupid podcast. And so Heather has a cupcake shop, and that's the chapter called A Study in Ignorance. And she's doing pretty well. She started out as a lady that loved to make cupcakes, and all of her friends were talking about how great her cupcakes were. And by the way, that's how a lot of businesses start. They kind of start as a hobby thing, and somebody goes, well, gosh, maybe I ought to get into it. And, oh, this is going to be easy. Well, Donna, you know that it's not easy. It all looks like it is easy, but it doesn't end up being that way.
Correct.
And so we're talking about ignorance with Heather. And so what we're talking about is the learning curves that a business owner needs to know to get where they want to go. And last week, for instance, I dug in. I set out the hypothetical in the book. And Heather, for instance, has just one employee, and it's her friend. And I'm talking about how Heather needs to learn how to train, and you know, it's really not optimal as well to have your friend as your employee. I mean, there's just a lot of pitfalls with it. And so we talk about her metrics, for instance, her ignorance in her metrics, because I set the scenario up as Heather having a storefront, but then also doing a lot of catering or a lot of corporate events, and most of her revenues coming from her corporate events. And so we have a question if we really even need the storefront. But then again, maybe the storefront is what's getting all the leads to corporate. And you have to be able to measure that stuff to make the good decisions. And by the way, as a kid, I got to work in a bakery just 6 blocks up the street from my house. I'd go in at 6 a.m. before high school and make donuts and bread and stuff. So I know a little bit about how one of those shops works, but then from years of experience helping other people build businesses, I put together that sort of picture. Mm-hmm. And we use it as an example to walk through how you need to think about your learning curves and how you need to be just profoundly honest with yourself about what you don't know that you need to know to get where you want to go.
Absolutely true. And as a complement to your story, I'm aware of a woman who a number of years ago had cookies. She had cookies that were just absolutely amazing, and she was thrilled. She wanted to go into business for herself, and there was a team of professional businessmen that found that her quality was so outstanding. They were willing to support her, and she just couldn't see the vision that they could see for her. And she ended up stepping away from these advisors, if you will. And she became very frightened that there was someone that was going to take away what she was doing. Now, she ended up doing her cookies and ended up being like Heather, where she didn't have a storefront. She ended up having a manufacturing plant. But I think that there was a real strong sense of disillusionment. I don't even know that she's still in business. But it's really tough when someone is in business. There is what I call a paranoia to, gee whiz, somebody's going to take everything from me. I had family members who went through that very same thing. It's almost like a subconscious sabotage that goes on. It's really hard when you're in business and you have competitors that are going to be out there to have an attitude is that there is a room, there is a place for me to do what I can do. And how do I want to make that so that it's substantial? And that's where you bring in slow and steady wins the race. And that's not easy because there is this theme of we've got to be able to get rich quick. It doesn't work that way for most people.
No, it doesn't. And, Steve Jobs talked about it, how everybody was shocked at the overnight success that Apple became. And he's going, oh, yeah, you guys didn't realize we started in a garage and just worked our tails off for years making nothing. And that's how businesses tend to grow. And again, Jim Collins talks about that in Good to Great, where he talks about how you're building, you're getting everything in place. And then all of a sudden, wow, when it starts to work, then it just really starts to work. He calls it the flywheel effect. And what maybe I'm talking about in that same sense is you've got to get all these systems of your business working right. And one of the components of getting them working right is examining what's wrong with them and where the problems are, where the potential problems are, rather, with getting to your goals. And with catastrophes, it would be what can trip you up? What are the sucker punches that life's going to throw at you? And they're going to come. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And I'm not talking about an encyclopedic list of them, but some of them are going to happen. And people think that they're hard to think through. They're not. There's nothing new under the sun. The same stuff has happened to business since the Sumerians started doing business, 2,500 years BC? Mm-hmm. And we think that we're special. Guess what? We're not. It's the same stuff over and over and over again. Whether it's with management dealing with succession planning, whether it's with personnel making sure that you've got your key people lined out and that you're protected in case they leave, with production just making sure that it's done right, with your plant making sure that it's safe, making sure that it's insured, and so on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I've seen so many catastrophes happen to myself as well as to other people in business. And there is an art to running a business. I think many times people like to pop up examples like Warren Buffett. He gets so much publicity. What they don't realize is that this man, for all intents and purposes, started off as a bean counter even when he was a kid. He really worked with the numbers. And I think for a lot of people that are entrepreneurs, working with those numbers is very frustrating. They're about doing and being out there and making the connections and doing different things and using what you call the metrics. And one of the comments you make is, if you don't have that, if that is not a part of you, find someone that really can do that observation and work with it, or I should say observations, because you're going to be looking at multiple things so that they can give you good feedback.
Yeah, absolutely true. And as you might have gathered, I'm a little bit of a artist type. I'm actually a history major from college, and I love writing. I love doing that stuff. So I'm a creative type. And our metrics, I kind of hate financial metrics. Now I'm relatively good at them. I actually used to teach income tax, but it's not what I love to do. And so our Jamie, who's my right hand around here, is a math major. Mm-hmm. And she loves them. She loves math. I mean, we just tease her all the time about how she goes home and does equations. And she doesn't. But that's the sort of people you need to get on your team who are going to crunch those numbers, who are going to start to help you understand what the dashboard of your business looks like. Because those numbers are the gauge. They're like looking at the dashboard on your car. They're your speedometer. They're your gas gauge. The gas gauge is your bank account, right? Mm-hmm. And, your speedometer is how fast you're growing or how fast the leads are coming in. And a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of businesses are really horrible at that, and they don't pay attention to it. And conversely, we're one of the fastest growing law firms in America. We've made Law Firm 500 3 times in a row. We'll do it again this year. And it's because we know our metrics inside and out. It's kind of freaky how much attention we pay to it. We do a forward-looking budget every year, and the last 2 years we've been off at the end of the year by less than 2%. Mm-hmm. And knowing those sorts of things is really empowering to being able to grow a business.
You have also, in your book, The Art of Preventing Stupid, You have sections about priorities. If someone wants to get to 150,000 in their annual income, because everybody is different, and then priorities for startups to 250,000 in revenue, and then going all the way up to over 10 million in revenue. And someone would say, "Wow, why is it you broke it down like that? Wouldn't the same rules apply across the board?"
The real fundamental, the first dividing line is between ignorance and ineptitude. You're going to have a lot more concern about ignorance with a startup company than you are with a growing company or a scale-up company. And there's probably a continuum in there. And the reason for that is when you're a startup, you're just learning how to put the pieces together to make it work. So that's why your learning curves are so important. Now, if you're an established and a mature company, you got to make sure you're not resting on your laurels and that you're not starting to slack off. But now, if you're a mature company and decide to go into a new line of business, now let's flip down to ignorance and let's start to really drill down and be hypercritical about what we're doing. Similarly, let's think about management catastrophe, and this is just pretty blunt talk about it. I'm a whole lot more concerned about management catastrophe with a mature company because I want to make sure the management team is solid. If we've got a startup company, they just don't have all that much to lose except everything. I mean, and by all that much to lose and everything's not that big. Mm-hmm. Maybe the dream is big, but if you're running a $100 million company and your management team goes down in a jet crash, company's in a lot of trouble. If you're running a $100,000 company and you die, well, it's a catastrophe, and it's a horrible catastrophe, but there's really nothing we can do about it.
Yes,
it's
and
over.
Yes, and I know that there is a friend of mine who is working for a small business person that is doing a wonderful business and service and has been in business for 40 some odd years. And she said it is so frustrating because he is not well and he wants to pass the company along to someone who really is not competent to handling it, and it's going to go down the toilet. And excuse my description, but that's exactly what's going to be flushed away. And this is something that happens every day. And this is where your publication is unique because you work with those various levels. And the art of preventing stupid, I think, is something that would be an excellent read for anyone that wants to be the entrepreneur, but more importantly, any student that is looking at being engaged in business. This is going to enable them to have an opportunity to stand tall in a level of understanding that otherwise they wouldn't have. Now, you have a website, Matt Davis, the davisbusinesslaw.com. It's davisbusinesslaw.com. Did you have one particularly for the book? And don't you also have a podcast?
Yeah, the law firm's website is davisbusinesslaw.com. My book website is artofpreventingstupid.com, and we've got a podcast, Art of Preventing Stupid. It's over at iTunes and I believe all the other places that podcasts are found. And yeah, we'd love to have anybody visit them, and just loving getting this message out there because we want to build some families' futures. And there's not a lot of law firms that help people in the way we do to help them get in front of their problems and actually become a value-added asset to their business.
I think that is very, very important because when one grows the business, with each level, there's always going to be those challenges. Matt Davis, I want to thank you so much for being with me. Your publication, Art of Preventing Stupid, is a powerful one. The title says it as it is, and that's part of what keeps the economy of a country strong, is when there is the opportunity to build a business. Thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you. I'd love to be in here. You take care.
Thank you, sir. Matt Davis, The Art of Preventing Stupid. That is, well, hey, we can all benefit from that, can't we? Donna Sebo here. I am on the road. I am doing an appearance, so you won't be able to call in during the second half of this program. However, we've got some good things to share with you, so stay with me. We'll be back in just a moment. Just remember that when I am in studio during the second half of the Donna Sebo Show between 8:30 and 9 p.m., you are going to be able to call in and chat with me if you so desire. Donna Sebo here. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Donna Sebo Show. If you'd like to have an opportunity to be featured on this program or Warriors for Peace heard Wednesdays, please send a copy of your publication along with your contact information to the Donna Sebo Show, Post Office Box 97272, Lakewood, Washington 98497. Please allow 6 to 8 weeks for review of the publication. Again, the mailing address is Post Office Box 97272, Lakewood, Washington 98497.
Donna Sebo here. I am so delighted with the guests that are evolving coming up on my program, and July is just around the corner. The stores are filled with all kinds of 4th of July celebration items. It's in a very exciting time of the year. Of course, it's summer, isn't it? And I've got a recipe I wanted to share with you that you could put in your crock pot and enjoy with your family on a hot summer night. But we're going to be talking with Frankie Pizarro tomorrow for Want of 40 Pounds. That's right. Frankie is going to be sharing a story with us that is, well, in a way it's sort of sad, and in another way it's sort of inspiring. So we'll be doing that. And then Iquitos, John Baer is my guest, and this is going to be a factional novel. And then 3 Breaths and Begin, William Meyer. And we have so many other wonderful, wonderful people. Remember, if you want to be kept informed about the programming and about the wonderful people that I have on this show, you are welcome to sign up for the monthly newsletter by going to my website, DelphiInternational.com, and seebo'sclassics.com. There's a little pop-up menu there. Fill it out, and then in your mailbox every month, on the first of the month, you will get the newsletter that I put out. And also, if you choose not to do that, you can go into my website, DelphiInternational.com, find the newsletter there, be kept informed. And then if you like us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, tap on that follow button. My assistant, Deb, sends out daily information about the guests that are coming up on the programming. There's the Donna Sebo Show, and then Warriors for Peace. We feature people from around the world who share what they have in the way of information with you. It's wonderful. You get all kinds of new perspectives and, I think, ideas that can stand you in good stead. And remember, the Donna Sebo Show shifted to an evening format. I'm on from 8 to 9 p.m. Pacific time. And then every Wednesday we have the double header, which is Warriors for Peace and the Donna Sebo Show. Warriors for Peace is on from 7 to 8 p.m. And those programs are put into the player. They are rotated, and every 13 to 15 hours, programs are played again. Also, we have the archives that are available to you. We invite you to check those out as well. And the call-in number, when I am in studio, which I'm not this evening, I would tell you, write it down, keep it handy, because if you want to call in and chat with me about something that is challenging you or otherwise, the number to call into is 253-582-5597. Jonathan Poré is a man that really is what I'd call a visionary. He tries to look ahead. He's wanting to solve problems before they become agitating irritants that evolve into catastrophe. And one of the comments that he made that I thought was Well, a very good observation of the human character is that people do not understand the nature of transition ahead of them. Do you ever feel that sometimes you wish you had a crystal ball where you could say, how can I deal with XYZ coming up? What can I do? Well, right now, look at what we're going through with climate change. This is not something that is brand new information, contrary to the way that it is portrayed often in the media. Do you know that the Eskimos in Alaska over 50 years ago were telling scientists the weather is changing? The ice is becoming thinner. The waters are warming up. Did anybody pay attention over 50 years ago? Heavens no. What's 50 years? Look at what we're experiencing today. Why is this happening? Well, there's a number of reasons. One is that there's so much volcanic activity that's going on underneath the waters on this planet. They are heating up water. Yes. And there is so much else that's going on. But too often, it's superficial observations. So we are really thinking we can control everything. But you know what? You can't. And one of the things that Jonathan said, he said, we now have to learn the art of cohabitation, of co-creating with nature a shared and genuinely sustainable future. Everything, including human rights, cultures, material progress, actual survival of our species, and millions of other species, depends on that mindset. It really does. We have to evolve into a cooperative attitude. Said, any vision for the future without that kind of insight at heart, no matter how inspiring or progressive it can be, will never amount to much of anything. When we study history, when we look at human history, we human beings just seem to do the same stuff over and over again. And when I think of my guest today, and my guest saying, let's look at prevention rather than waiting for something to smack us up the side of the head, makes a difference. But I want to share something else with you. And that is, the art of prevention also means that you've got to ask questions. So many times we feel so helpless because our world of experience, whatever it may entail, just hasn't brought us into certain environments or certain kinds of thinking. And I've observed this with other people, and as well as myself. And one of the hardest lessons I ever had to learn was to open my mouth and to ask questions. Now, what's important about asking questions is that sometimes you don't know the right question to ask. Sometimes you're in a situation and you go, what do I do with this? So you go and you talk to someone that's a professional. They give you information. And then maybe you're checking something on the internet. And you go, okay, what's that? And then maybe you go and you ask questions of a friend. But what you're doing is literally an investigation, sort of like the layers of an onion. You're peeling that which is not really usable away. Lots of times we don't know the right question to ask. And I'm thinking of a woman right now who went through a very major situation in her life. There was a death of a family member. There was litigation. There were property challenges. And what she started doing, and she was terrified of doing this because she didn't want to appear stupid. And we're talking about a fairly well-educated woman. So what you've got here is that she said, to heck with this noise. I don't know what to do. I know this little bit, but I don't know what else I can apply here because her circumstances were a little unique. She starts talking to people. She gets information. She goes to a bank saying, I need to know about how to do XYZ. She's given certain information. She goes online. She checks out certain processes and she looks at that, but she says, something isn't right here. I'm not getting the right information. She even went so far as calling certain offices of her community to try to find out what certain legal points were. What she found was that for most of the information that she was getting from the bank and from the offices of the environment that she lived in, her community, they didn't have a clue. She ends up calling someone who is very, very knowledgeable, saying, I just can't go along with this information. Something's not right. So she was using her intuition. She ends up calling this individual who has a legal background. She finds out all she had to do was make a phone call to a particular party, getting specific instructions, and with one phone call, without having to pay out hundreds of dollars, she was able to resolve the situation. Lots of times we get stuck. We get stuck because we know that we don't know. And often we think, oh, how could I have been so stupid? How come I didn't know this? You're not going to know everything. So developing those links with people and environments that know how to ask the right questions or have been engaged in certain environments like the legal environment or the retail environment or whatever environment, or like Heather, the baker that was used as an example by my guest. What do? You ask questions. And one of the most important lessons that I have had to learn, that a lot of people in business have had to learn, and it keeps repeating itself, is that you need to be aware of the fact that many times, whether you're in business for yourself or you're working for someone else, you may find that you have to reinvent what you present. And you'll need help, perhaps, and that's okay. That is a good thing to do. That is a good thing to do. So whenever you're feeling like you are at a crossroad, don't be afraid to open your mouth, to ask questions, to write down the information you're given, and see if you have touched upon all the resources you possibly can. Remember, all of us live within our experience bubble, and the only way that bubble of awareness can grow, or actually be popped so you're not in a bubble, is by you reaching out to other people. It makes all the difference in the world. It really, really does. And it's something that you'll always find yourself learning, something new. And I have a very good friend who I really have a deep respect for. She is 89 years young. She's going to be turning 90 years of age this year. And she is in the real estate industry. She said, Donna, if I could stand and count how many times I've had to reinvent myself to be able to survive, she said I would probably never be able to count all the times I've had to do it. But she said, I am starting my 5th business. Now, she's 89 years old, for heaven's sakes. Starting a 5th business at 89, most of us would say, are you out of your mind? Why in the world? You're 89 years old. Why aren't you just sitting back and smelling the roses, traveling to Europe? Because she is quite wealthy. She said, I'd be bored silly. I would be bored out of my mind. She said, I love working. She said, I love being engaged in life. She said, I have a regular work routine every day, 10 to 4, 6 days a week. And she said, I'm happy and I'm healthy and I'm engaged with people. She said, I'm doing what I love to do and I'm living well. Wow. How many of us would like to be able to say that when we're 89 years young? This is something we need to remember. Look for those people that can inspire you in your life. Look for those people that give you an example, not just of endurance and resilience, but also with a zest for life. You can't take it with you. Paul Allen died, sadly, of a very serious illness, but that man lived his life every single day to the best of his capability. And this is a man who left this planet a lot earlier than a lot of people would have wanted him to. But he made a point for all of his money, and he couldn't take a penny of it with him. But he said, life is to be lived, and he lived it accordingly. This is something we need to remember. We all have an expiration date of one type or another. So what are you going to do with this day that you have? This is your life. What are you going to do? What kind of a legacy do you want to leave? Oh, I know, I'm tossing out all kinds of little thoughts there, but I hope you will consider that, because it is something worth considering. Donna Sebo here. 253-582-5597 is normally the telephone number you call into if you'd like to chat with me, but I am on the road, so I am not able to talk with you this evening. However, I will be able to tomorrow. So keep that in mind, write that number down, and know that you can call me on Skype, whatever it is that's convenient for you, and I'd like to light up your life with a little bit of intuitive insight. So many people during this time of the year, here in the Pacific Northwest especially, because we're evolving into the summer months, we have a challenge with pollen for many individuals. There are the summer colds that go around. Well, that's life, so you want to make sure you keep yourself good and healthy. However, more and more of us are becoming aware of the fact that we have to pay attention to what we put into our bodies whenever we're experiencing anything. And I wanted to address a commentary that I received on bacterial versus viral infections. And it's very important to know the difference. Why? Because all too many times people are sent home with antibiotics. Antibiotics serve a very, very special purpose. They have saved the lives of literally millions of people. But when you overuse antibiotics, when you get an old-fashioned cold, chicken soup, use that instead of going in and getting a shot of antibiotics. You're working against your body. You're not working with your body. But you know what? When it comes to viruses like the flu virus, etc., antibiotics don't work very well. They don't work well at all. They can actually create more bacteria that's resistant to treatment that you might need in the future. Now, there's researchers at the University of Rochester Medical Center that have identified 11 genetic markers that signify whether an infection is bacterial or whether it is viral. And they did a study. They had 94 patients that had a lower respiratory tract infections. And do you know that they were able to identify for a good 90+% of these people whether it was viral or bacterial? Now, this is something that is going to be very, very important, because then physicians, if there is a simple test that can be done, that they can do right there in the office, then they'll know whether to give you an antibiotic or not. Doctors and nurses want you to be well. Believe me. They have so many people that are sick. I have to laugh whenever anybody says, gee, if they really got into preventing illness, they wouldn't make it. The medical profession would go broke. I'm sorry, that's not the case. That is not the case, and that is not going to be what happens. We are not going to be eliminating illnesses, accidents, and other things. We are living better today than our ancestors did, believe it or not. We are living longer, and the general health of people is actually better. And there are particular components that contribute to that. Number one is sanitation, good sewage treatment and good water treatment. That is very important. When I saw something about bottled water, and this was on the internet about bottled water that was being sold at some box stores that they found had arsenic in it, I said to myself, how is it that the manufacturing companies for bottled water are not being tested? Isn't there something that's supposed to be done relative to that? Don't they go through inspections? And if the arsenic is in the water, where are they getting their water from? Good questions. Is anybody asking those questions? A lot of hoopla, and then all of a sudden it all disappears. Remember, if you're concerned about your water at any level, there are tests that you, as a consumer, can do. And I'll tell you what, they use, I know in many different sewage plants and water processing plants, they have all of these different type of processes that they go through. But one of the processes that the Germans discovered many, many years ago that had to be addressed, and I do not know that we address it here in this country. I'd love to have somebody call me and tell me about this. But I'd like to know, do they check for medicinal chemicals in the waters that we drink? Do you know in Germany, and this goes back to easily 2000 or before, they found that there were illnesses that were developing with people, and they were perplexed. Why is this suddenly becoming so significant? They found the hormonal levels in the water in Germany, in the waters in Germany, and I don't know the specific areas. They found high levels of pharmaceuticals. So then they had to develop a filtering system to process that out. How many water facilities do that? It's a good question to ask. And I think that this is extraordinarily important. Also, arsenic occurs naturally in nature. And this is something that sometimes when water levels get very, very low in certain environments, because water is a very caustic component, it will leach arsenic out of rocks that it goes in, through, around, and about. So there's a lot of questions that need to be asked. And these two components, sanitation and healthy water, have prevented disease. Cholera is still out there. You have typhoid that's still out there. All of these diseases that were just so devastating, and so many more, in different parts of the world still exist. And they exist only because of unhealthy water and poor sanitation conditions. That's why whenever there's a huge disaster like we had in New Orleans and with the hurricanes, and when your sewage systems are disrupted, when you have all of these processing systems that enable us to have a healthier and better life, when they go down, it really makes a difference. Donna Sebo here, and I know that we just have a few minutes, but one of the things I wanted to talk about was a 3D printer. And this I really had my first major exposure to about 3 years ago, when I saw this little machine making toys. I was fascinated with it. I was at a particular showcase program, and I was just amazed at what I was seeing it produce. Well, 3D printers are being really utilized in very, very special ways, but one of the ways that they are going to have a significant impact upon is in making body parts. That's right. Now, back in the 1990s, if not earlier, they were looking at reproducing, let's say, the outer ear. And there was a little girl I remember watching a program about that for some reason or another didn't have the outer ear. I honestly don't recall whether she was born without an outer ear or if it was because of an accident that she lost the actual outer ear. Anyway, they grew the ear from cellular tissue on the back of a mouse. They were able to apply it to her ear, and she looked perfectly normal. It was absolutely wonderful. Now, in 2015, more than 125,000 organs, mostly kidneys, were transplanted from one person to another in the U.S. Many times these organs came from people that had been killed in an accident. Once in a while you have a living volunteer, but there was an incident that terminated someone's life, and they donated their organs. And I think this is really great. So many, though, die, and I have a friend whose husband died waiting for a transplant, because getting a kidney to match the body dynamics of the recipient is really a challenge. Now, bioprinting of organs, they're still working on it, but they're using what they call bioprinted tissue, transplantable tissues. This is absolutely amazing. And one of the aspects that was discovered, and the reason it's called bioprinting, it was that in the early 2000s, it was found that living cells taken from a donor or from a patient could be sprayed through nozzles of inkjet printers without being damaged. Yep, that's science. They're coming up with all kinds of things. So they are trying to determine how they can keep someone alive by creating living body parts made from their own tissues. And there is so much of this going on. There has been research done in China where they've imprinted a section of artery into a monkey using the monkey cells. And there's a firm in San Diego that's working on this. It is absolutely amazing what we are able to do. And there's a company, if you're curious about this, called Tissue Regeneration Systems. It's in Michigan. And they're working with this. It is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Well, that's just a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And if you are someone that is restructuring or reinventing your life, your business, don't be discouraged by the setbacks. Realize those setbacks are there for the purpose of helping you to understand that it's time for you to grow again. Now, we're going to moan and groan about that because we go, gee whiz, why can't I keep it just the way it was? Everything was so nice. Or, I know what I know, but if I go into a new turf, I could fail. Okay, so you could fail. I really like what Norman Fahn, who was an Arctic explorer, said. He said, dream big and dare to fail. And I think those words are words that you should take to heart. It makes a difference. Remember, life is for living. If you don't dream, if you don't dare, if you're not willing to fail, then your life is just going to be a little square box of boredom, nothingness. Now, maybe that makes you happy. But I think for most people it doesn't. Remember, you've been given the gift of life for the purpose of being something very special. That's right. You have gifts and talents that are unique to you. When you share those gifts and talents, your world becomes much bigger and much richer. And remember, you can prevent stupid, but don't be afraid to step into a new turf. Donna Sebo here. Remember always, you're the master of your fate. You are the captain of your soul. God bless. Be well. We'll be talking again soon. Tomorrow, in fact. Look forward to your company. Bye for now.
You've been listening to The Donna Sebo Show. We're delighted that you were able to join us and invite you to tell your friends and family about the program. Have a wonderful day.